Content warning. Following programs contain smoking, sometimes potty mouth language, and of course, fictitious discussions of violence, dystopias, and all in all, fictitious stuff. All right, fine. We said something. All right? Yeah, let's hope people saw it. Yeah, that works. Hello, what's up? What's going on? How you feeling? What are you up to? What is the word? Yummers. That's right. How you guys doing out there? I am Solar Gray, the Cinematic Sorcerer, and welcome to the dark side of the room. I am coming at you guys from the place of many D6s right behind me. That's right. Today we are going to be talking about Shadowrun, the game of thousands of D6s. But we are not talking about game mechanics today because a lot of people out there might not know what we're talking about. So I want to welcome you guys here to the dark side of the room where we are going to talk about all this stuff. And of course, we're not going to do it the way that we normally do, because let's be real, anybody who are fans of Shadowrun, the RPG, the video games, the properties, y'all know this stuff is big. It's a big role-playing game. So what we are going to do is we are going to get into all of this stuff, and we're just going to go straight there, all right? So thank you guys for showing up, and like I said, thank you guys for being here. Now let's talk about Shadow, because you know, this is a game that came out years and years and years ago. All right, we're talking in the faraway land of 1989. And well, how are we gonna do this? Well, yeah, okay, yeah, some random pixelation. That's right. I don't really know what's going on with all this stuff because, yeah, according to my stuff, I've got excellent signal and all that stuff. But who knows, Deckers? There might be somebody out there doing a thing. So now that we're here, and I'm just checking on all of the other stuff because, yeah, quality. Yep. Okay, yeah, because I should be at a glorious 720 right now. So we'll see how all this stuff is going. And, yeah, we'll just, yeah, low latency toggle. Oh no, the low latency toggle. I don't really know how all that stuff goes. Let's see. Yeah, no, low latency is on. Let's turn it off. Let's see what that does. All right. Anyway. So yeah, well, I'm doing 720, we're doing all that stuff, and the display resolution is terrible. So yeah, that is most definitely it. And we'll see how all that stuff looks, or I might just be getting shut down by a decker. Or as you new bloods call them, hackers. Anyway, so let's talk about Shadowrun, right? Let's seriously talk about Shadowrun. Now, this is a game of such deep lore that covering it is gonna be a thing. So we are taking the rest of the week to cover Shadowrun, right? Now, if you guys are wondering what we're talking about, Shadowrun in and of itself was a tabletop RPG put out in 1989. Okay, guys, like 1989, real talk. All right, and back in the early 90s, everything was about being what people call now weeaboos. You know, we call them otakus, or you know, and this is where we get the love of mall ninjas, and there is just so much stuff that's there. Okay. And in the 80s, I got to give you guys some cultural context, all right? In the 80s, we went from the 1970s to the 1980s because that's how math works. And in the 1970s, things were kind of rough, all right? Things were seriously rough. I guess you could say economically, there wasn't a whole lot of many weird things happening in the world. And one of the big things, and this is really big, all right, guys, was Japan was coming across as, what is the term? As one of the really big in powers, okay? Japan was essentially taking over corporations and manufacturing, much like the Chinese have done today with Shenzhen and Taiwan. So there was this big push for buy American, use American made, America, America, America. At least what we had come to know as a big push at that time. However, that kind of hurt. All right, so, however, one of the things that came out of that, though, was the rise of the corporation, okay? Back in the 60s and 70s, there was a lot of mom and pop operations, and because of prohibition in the 1940s, there was a whole bunch of gangs, specifically the mafia. And these guys ran Las Vegas, and people had seen the Godfather movies, and it was all cool and dandy, and everybody wanted to be like a cool little mobster, talk like Marlon Brando, But when the 80s came around, we got Ronald Reuel Reagan. And this guy, a former actor, turned into a politician, turned into the president of the United States. And he opened the door for what we've come to know happening primarily. Not a union. He did a lot of corporate tax cuts, and a lot of deregulation to make sure that big business did not take control of the company or of the country. He pretty much said, well, you guys should be able to make your money however you feel like. And open the door for major corporations to essentially make all the money they can in every single aspect of life. And, well, time moved forward, and there was this great big fear. Corporations would essentially corrupt the government, buy the government, run the world, both de facto run the world. I know, it's a big thing. No, this is not a political channel, all right? So we got games. So we got a bunch of games, a whole bunch of games up there. I wonder what is going on with the internet signal. Stuff is looking fine from where I'm coming from. Anyway. So what had happened? This is odd. Hang on, guys. I'm not happy with, I'm pretty sure you guys. I'm gonna check a different machine to see if it's my internet, if it's your guys' internet. Let me know if we're coming in clearly. That is the big thing I want to make sure of. And let me check the YouTube. Now the YouTube is also all weird and... Alright, well, this is a lot better. It's still going in. So, yeah, I'm not sure what's going on here. Because I wasn't having this problem earlier. So, yeah, well, we'll just see what's going on here. Output, streaming, yep, standard encoder, same stuff I always use. So yeah, we should be good. We really should be good. So yeah, we'll see what happens. If there is a problem with this, then I'll re-upload this one as a rerun with the clean footage. Okay, guys? So as I was saying, the 1980s came around, and sure enough, massive corporations started taking over everything. Enter writers like William Gibson and a resurgence in dystopic futures. Okay, dystopic fiction. All right, dystopic speculative fiction. We've got guys like Conrad and Gibson and all these people saying, "Hey, future dystopia, not cool." Blade Runner had come out and made its mark on the world, and enter role-playing games reflect what we see in the world and the stuff that we want. All right, I'm gonna do one more thing. Doing one more thing. Check on this, because something is stopping my signal and I'm not quite sure. So yeah, really not sure what all this stuff is, so we'll see how this goes. Alright, yeah, that's really, I don't have that many subroutines or subprograms going, so it's probably not my computer. Anyway, so as I was saying, enter 1989. Dungeons and Dragons is doing as good as it ever has. All right, and a few other games have come out in the meantime. We're talking and made their splash. We're talking games like Call of Cthulhu, Rifts, Cyberpunk, and then we get our game. Okay, the game that we are talking about today, and that is Shadowrun, first edition from Thassa Games. All right, now this is a game where man meets magic and machines. Now, before we really go on to some things, I want to make quite a few things clear. Okay, Shadowrun has been out there forever. It has been out there forever, since 1989, and it's got a really big and loyal following. I mean, those chummers out there are doing good. In fact, what I call you guys is directly from Shadowrun. I love this setting. But it also has competition out there that, how can I put it, has a lot better marketing as far as its name, and that is Cyberpunk, right? Because it's a role-playing game named after a genre. Now, Shadowrun is a little bit of cyberpunk, a little bit of fantasy, and a little bit of, what's the term I'm looking for? High levels of science fiction. So it's not as speculative as cyberpunk. It's not as gritty and realistic, because we got dragons and elves, dwarves, and orcs and ogres. So think about what would happen if you take a D&D setting and you drop it into Blade Runner. Okay. There is absolutely nothing wrong with this idea, right? But let's really get into this. All right, let's seriously get into this. Now, one, Shadowrun starts in the year of 2048. I think it's 2048. I'm doing a lot of this from memory. So around 2048, 2050. All right. So it's still the future according to our calendar. Is where cyberpunk exists. Now, big thing happens. We are in modern times, and we are doing our modern time thing, running, jumping, climbing trees, taking whatever work we can to pay the bills. And then the Mayan calendar ends in 2012. Was it the end of the world? Oh no. There was something a lot better than the end of the world. And what was it? Magic returns to the world. Okay? And when magic returned to the world, I don't mean technology. I mean fireballs, chain lightning, waving your hand and lights coming from you, and dragons, and all of the fantasy stuff comes out. So think back to that Netflix abomination of a movie called Bright. And oh, is the chat not showing here? There we are. Yeah, that's right. All right, we got the chat back. Sorry about that, guys. Imagine that Netflix abomination movie called Bright and put the rest of the magic back in, okay? This is what happened in 2012. It wasn't the end of the world. It was the end of the age of not magic. And this was huge, okay? This was huge. The implications of this went really, 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 really big, all right? However, it's still a dystopian future. Corporations run everything, and not just corporations, mega corporations. You know? Yeah, these mega corporations control everything. We're talking food distribution, all that other stuff. So how does a person live if not working for a mega corporation? When I say mega, and I mean mega corporation, we are talking about these mega corporations run governments, all right? Both de facto and de jure, as in through the rule of law. And life kind of sucks for everyone except for the richest of the richest of the rich. Okay? So how do you do? Hang on. A world map. Shadowrun. Well, that is the biggest thing. All right? How do you make a living? Well, the whole world has become the ghetto. Mama's little baby had a bad. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah. So yeah, the geopolitical world map in Shadowrun has just gone straight to crazy. And I mean, we are literally talking, if we want to talk just, and I mean just, about the United States or North America, all right? In America, you've got the California Free States. You've got, the CFS, which might have inspired some sort of new republic from a different sci-fi franchise, just kind of saying. And those guys are based in San Francisco. But of course, Texas is seceded. The Denver Front Range Free Zone, we gonna talk about that, along with the Native American nations. Quebec became its own republic, and the US and Canada decided to team up and leave certain people out, specifically California, Texas. And Texas, they're special because they're always looking for a reason to not be there, right? And yeah, everything's gone a little weird. Now, California has a big economy, but it didn't. It's like, hi, country, how you doing? Can we get some help here? Just a little help out here. And Japan was like, sure, we would love to help you guys out. We'll just incorporate you into us, and we'll protect you from Colorado and the rest of the Southwest. How's that? All right, yeah. But again, we're talking major dystopia. If you ain't got the new yen, you ain't got a life, all right? And that's where we have our dystopic future engraving in there, all right? Now, these super mega corporations, these AAA corporations that are out there, essentially control everything. Okay? And when I say everything, we're talking all the aspects of livable life. All right, we're talking real estate, food distribution, travel, licensing. It is everything that you never, ever, ever, ever want to live under. Okay. Now we've got our major AAA mega corporation, and to let you guys know, a mega corporation is essentially a corporation that owns a bunch of corporations that own a bunch of other corporations. Like if you guys think Disney owns everything, who owns Disney? Okay, that is what I'm talking about. So we've got a bunch, and they all have essentially divvied up every part of life. All right, from the Ares Macro Technology Corporation, which is in Detroit, and they deal with armaments and, of course, transportation, because this was the 80s and cars were still made in Detroit. We've got As Technology, because it was one of the things that I found most fascinating. Okay, in this future world, the Mexican drug cartels were like, we own everything. All right, we own everything here in Mexico. Why don't we just take over the government and make everything that we do legal? And they did. Okay, that's just what they did. And they rebranded Mexico from Mexico to Atlan. All right, they took back their Mayan heritage and they went on it. And their corporation is essentially the pharmaceuticals corporation. All right, I mean that's the major thing. Consumer goods, chemistry, and of course the monetizing of magic. You know, you got Evo from shipping and infrastructure, Horizon, which controls the media. You got so many of these technologies. But if there is a part of logistical day-to-day operations in life, a mega corporation controls someone that controls it. So how do you make a living? Where's your upward mobility? The answer is you really can't if you are a standardly moral person. And when I say standard moral, you don't want to kill, you don't want to steal, you know, you just follow the rules, you do a hard day's work for a fair day, you know, that kind of thing. But to everybody else who realizes that with money you can buy things like food, medicine, and upgrades, like cybernetic upgrades to make your ability to make more money to get better food, we have our main characters, and we are talking the Shadowrunners. All right. And the Shadowrunners are you. You guys are the pirates, you're the gangs, you're the ones that take on these jobs. Essentially, there is an underground network on the internet, or the cyberpunk or the Shadowrun equivalent to the internet. God, what was it called? It was not the Matrix. No, Matrix was one of the mega corporations. Yeah, you got essentially, help me out here, guys. Let me help me out here, guys. God, what was it? Either way, essentially, you would put an ad up on the dark web, somebody would contact you on Fiverr, and you and your ragtag team would meet up with your Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson is essentially somebody that works for one of the mega corporations, hiring you to steal something, to blow something up, to kill someone, to kidnap someone, or something. You are a mercenary group, right? And why are you being hired? Because the mega corporation doesn't want their name to get out there in the media, and you are expendable. So that is the premise of most every single Shadowrun game you will ever play. You are a Shadowrunner. You and your companions Yeah, you and your companions, you as an individual have been put together with a bunch of other individuals from the Matrix to go out and steal something or kill someone or find something. Is it a heist? Sometimes. Is it an adventure? Sometimes. Is it a dungeon delve? That is debatable. But you have all of the standards of adventure, crime, storytelling set in this super, super, super rich and deep world. Okay, now make no mistake, Shadowrun has its competitor, and its number one competitor is Cyberpunk. All right, that's right, Zap. Yeah, you're 1099. And its major competitor out there is Cyberpunk. Now, the difference between the two games, all right, and I'm not talking game mechanics. We're not getting into that today. The difference is the Cyberpunk is all tech and it's all style over substance. Shadowrun has magic and fantasy elements. The more of these elements that you throw into the universe at large, the more story options you have available to you. Not just what are you stealing, but why? What are its effects? What happens if we don't pull it off? Are we the last group of Shadowrunners that this Mr. Johnson has hired? Or, much like Viola Davis in The Suicide Squad, not Academy Award winning Suicide Squad, are we the only group of runners on this? Right? And Cyberpunk actually has character classes. And this game was always interesting because it has classes, but they're not classes. But they are classes, but they're not. How do we do this? Well, when we look at a game like Dungeons and Dragons, that is very much a level-based game. And Shadowrun is a skills-based game. All right, so what does this mean? You don't become a level 19 Decker. You're not going to be a level 18 Street Samurai. What do I mean by that? Well, let's talk about some of these archetypes. All right. One of the things I liked about this particular game, or not this particular game. Sorry. One of the things that I really liked about World of Warcraft is that it had character classes. Okay, but it really pushed the concept of archetypes. And what are the archetypes that I'm talking about? Archetype in general is what position, in your team you hold. All right, this is huge. All right, this doesn't mean what character class. It means what do you do for the party. All right, are you the healer? Are you the face? Are you the hacker? Are you the magician? Way down below the ocean. And we've got what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 major archetypes in the older editions, and of course recently 3 of them, or 2 of them, have been melded into a pre-existing one. So 3 of them have been conglomerated into one, right? But let's start with these archetypes, all right, to understand what they are and how they work. Now, the most famous archetype from Shadowrun, and trust me, I've done the research, is the Street Samurai, all right? Now, when you got the Street Samurai out there, who's the Street Samurai? Well, the Street Samurai are essentially, understand, guys, the late 80s and the 90s were an interesting time, right? What you guys reference as the late 80s and early 90s was the apex and essentially the end of that era. And I'm talking about the movie that made people like Keanu Reeves, The Matrix, all right? The Billy Badass, trench coat wearing, glasses wearing guy that can do all of the fighting and all of the stuff. That is what we're talking about when we talk about Street Samurai. These guys are cybernetically enhanced to be better in close combat, and they have a lot of things that we would consider silly today, such as the katana with the monofilament blade, you know? And they're out there going, look at me, I'm the king of the mall ninjas. And, but the thing is, in game, they could back up what they said most of the time. And these guys are not to be confused with adepts, okay? The second archetype. Now, the adepts are essentially the same thing, except instead of upgrading their bodies with tech, they do it with magic. All right, and these guys are so much the same as Street Samurai, except before I go on with, all right, before we continue with the adepts, I bring up these two, the adepts and the Street Samurai, because I want to talk about magic. All right, y'all know I love me some magic. I love me some spell casting, things that break the rules of the universe, right? In storytelling, I don't care if it's math magic, holy magic, arcane magic, blood magic, which we'll get into because of the SAIM and, of course, the Central and South Americans. But all the different magics that there are, one of the big things that a lot of people have had trouble with over the decades in storytelling is how do you balance, okay, how do you really balance having magic and technology in the same universe, okay? The easiest lampshade, and I will tell you, this is a very, very difficult thing to do in urban fantasy, all right? Why do you need a spell of telepathy when you've got a smartphone? Throwing a fireball is good. Getting a claymore mine is also good. So how, when you're writing fiction and all that stuff, do you deal with it? Well, you can go the Dresden Files route. There's something about magic that we don't know that kills the technology around you. So if you're throwing out magic, you need to stay away from high-tech cars, people with cybernetic implants, and hospitals that have life support machines, because your presence might short those things out, which very much limits a lot of things that a group can do in a setting. Or you can make them live harmoniously but work differently. But that brings up the question of how do you not essentially evolve into every player in your game being a technology blinged out magic slinging god by session 3. Shadowrun handles this. And at the time, what seemed to be revolutionary, a way that states this: you have something in this game called essence, and your essence is essentially the strength of your soul. Magic works with your soul. That's what it does. Your soul is the conduit through which magic is used, and sometimes it is the fuel in which your magic is used. As you get more cybernetic enhancements, you lose part of that soul. So, the more technologically advanced you are physically, the less good you are with magic. And then, they made the technology in this system practically integrated with all of the abilities to be cybernetically enhanced. Okay? Now, this brings up a lot of things. Like, one, most cybernetic enhancements are almost necessary to get through daily life, but they're also stupidly expensive, which brings us back to how do you make money, all right? So in this game, after about your third session, you'll realize that if you're talking to somebody who doesn't have many cybernetic implants and aren't dirt poor, you don't want to mess with them. Okay, but let's move on. So a street samurai has either managed to get a decent amount of money to upgrade their body with stronger muscles, mechanical arms, arms that have impact fists that work off of shotgun shells, all of that stuff. And of course, their mononucleic samurai sword, because yeah, you're gonna want the mononucleic samurai sword and the license that goes onto it. Because if you don't have a license for what you got registered to your serial identification number, then you're driving without a license, buddy. And what happens when that happens? Well, you either get your stuff confiscated, or you end up in jail. And if they can't confiscate your stuff without killing you, they don't care. And when I say they, I mean the authorities who are owned by the mega corporations. So, again, a lot of these things are there. You're born into the system, and you gotta pay to be in the system, and the system is like, screw you, pay me. But you killed all the jobs in my area. Well, you best find a job, huh? And I don't want to see you out there shadow running, because if I see you while you're shadow running, you're doing it wrong. So again, you've got your street samurai, who are the muscles. You know, they're the muscle. They're your tank. All right. And you also have your adepts, who are also your tanks and your DPS. Think about them like your barbarians, your fighters, and your rangers, and your monks. All right. So these are the roles they play. They're your heavies. They're the ones that go out there. Your Wookiees, you know, where it's like, Fezzik, tear his arms off. He's got augmented arms, so he can just rip yours off because, you know, he can pull at 135 pounds per square inch type of thing. But then, of course, you've got your faces, and your faces have had their bodies augmented in magical or technological ways to have really high charisma. All right? They know how to talk to you. That's right. They're the guy that says you should use their Shadowrunning company because their Shadowrun company is TOPS. And TOPS starts with T, and that stands for trouble, which these guys know how to avoid. And, no jobs? That sounds like a you problem. You got it exactly right, Zan. So yeah. So real talk. Your face is the one that makes the negotiations, the one that gets you into the club. You know, you can always identify a face because when the face is in the nightclub, they're the guys that either have bunches of people at the table, holding court. They're talking to people and flashing a look of some kind. Sometimes it can be intimidating. Sometimes it could be just a smile. But either way, people listen. And these guys are awesome. I love face. Then you've got what in current editions are known as hackers, okay? But way back in the day, they were called deckers. Like you guys, or at least like I call you guys. And the deckers are the people that spend their time on the internet, and they understand computers, they know all the programs, they hack, they do all that stuff, right? You know, these were the dudes that you needed, all right? These characters, you needed these characters. No money, no problem. They'll hack the bank. You need to get certain paperwork out. Well, you're going to need a decker on your team to actually get those files that Mr. Johnson has hired you to get, all right? But most deckers at the time were not very physically attuned to stuff because in Shadowrun, even if you're a fantasy race, you have to spend most of your life specializing in something, right? Then of course we had the riggers. And the riggers are different from the hackers because we didn't understand what it was back in '89, okay? And that's the thing. Your riggers used magical augmentations and of course some technological augmentations to take over machines. All right? You had your deckers that were pulling out information and your riggers that were taking over drones. All right? Yeah, I know we called them deckers. So, but as the later editions came about, we just roped all those into hackers. You're either hacking the drone or you're hacking the system to get the file because time moved on, more people became computer literate, all of that stuff. And of course, the final archetype that you're going to need in your Shadowrun party to make a balanced party that might live would be the Magician. The Magician, yes, yes. So we've got, yes, and one by one, they entered the Shadowrun company. The Street Samurai, the Adept, the Face, the Hacker, the Decker, the Rigger, the Magician, all of them boarded their ships. Hail Atlantis! Oh, sorry. So, and your magicians were literally the magic people. That's what they did. Tech was not really their thing. They have the fewest augmented stuff, but everyone has a sin, even if it's fake. Okay. So if you're living in one of these mega cities controlled by one of the mega corporations, you have a serial identification number. That's essentially your tracking chip. All right. Because everyone is registered for everything, and you can be scanned for your papers and all of that jazz. So you would put together these things, but these aren't character classes. Understand that, okay? They're really just the roles that a balanced shadow running company would take. All right, it is possible. Wow, man. Yeah, you guys are real. I love that you guys are into this. Let's see. We got Daryl over on YouTube saying Magic and Shadowrun always took its covenant. Don't need to spend money to gain similar effects. No armor. No armor can deny my spells unless you know magic. It's hard to realize that it's happening. It's true. It's true. Your magic could circumvent other people's techs. However, a 45 still took you out. So yeah, there was very much a balance where with a street samurai, chances are that 45 might not do it. They might have had their organs restructured inside them or put in a cybernetic heart that can be exchanged. But all of these archetypes are available to all the characters with character design and all that stuff. It's just a matter of how good are you at these particular skill sets, okay? Now, Shadowrun at the time ran a weird balance because just as today, the two biggest role-playing games on the market were Dungeons & Dragons over here with character classes, experience points, and rising in your career path, and Call of Cthulhu over here, which was really, really skill-based. You don't have a character class. You've got a job and what you know. And you can always practice and get better at stuff. Better at driving, better at... you could learn magic, and then you would go more crazy and all that stuff. Call of Cthulhu was a different week, guys. Where with the archetypes and the skills, Shadowrun tried its best to be a marriage between the two. And did it work? That's for a different day this week, all right? What I will say is that the world of Shadowrun is amazing, all right? Just the geopolitics alone make this world really, really, really interesting to jump around and play in, okay, guys? Now, I titled this one The Game of 1,000 D6s because it really is. Everything you did was roll a handful of D6s and then let's see if we succeed. All right, let's take a look at that. But over my years, when I've tried getting people into tabletop role-playing games, people came in three flavors. They wanted Star Wars, Blade Runner, or Lord of the Rings. All right, that is pretty much it. Now, when I want to run something that's not grimy and hopeless, like a Fallout game or a Cyberpunk game, I can throw Shadowrun out there. Now, there is a Shadowrun trope, and I think Xanth and Daryl are about to go, yeah! Again, we're going to be covering Shadowrun all week, Daryl, so all of your questions will probably be answered. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. The older Shadowrun players, you guys know what I'm talking about. We all know the trope that you cannot escape when it comes to playing Shadowrun, and that is your Mr. Johnson is going to screw you over. Okay? Most Shadowrun games I've ever seen or researched or played consist of a bunch of independent contractors. Well, let's just say I'm happy that I spent so much time as a touring musician because, in the words of Terry Pratchett, what an artist wants, really wants, at the end of the day, is to be paid. And half of your Shadowrun adventures will be spent succeeding in the mission, and the other half of the adventure will be tracking down and fighting your Mr. Johnson in order for them to pay you, or escaping prison after they take what you got for them and then they turn you in and all that stuff. Essentially, everyone in this setting is a jerk. So getting Shadowrun screwed is okay? Pink Mohawk versus Black Trench Coat. Thank you. That's Cyberrun versus Shadowrun in a nutshell. Thank you very much. So yeah, when it comes down to all this stuff, these games are great. Now the system in and of itself is really big for people that love crunch. It is so crunchy, so crunchy. You get to do a lot of mathematics, get to do a lot of record keeping. All right, and this even in the most current edition, which is 6th edition, and tomorrow we're going to go through the different editions to take a look at how gameplay has changed and how the story has evolved. Okay, excuse me. But as everything goes down, this game is crunchier than even Pathfinder, okay? It's gotten some awards because of its stuff. But I will tell you guys, there is a lot of record keeping, a lot of, even in the character creation step, came through. Just to get a specific set of skills, you know, they have what's called a net zero thing where you take certain drawbacks and it gives you negative karma points for you to build your character. Karma points are essentially experience points to get stuff and all that other stuff. You know, some games have XP, some games have skill points. This one has karma points. But either way, you can do things to take negative karma so that you can take really big things that cost positive karma, and as long as it measures out to 0 when you're done, that's good. So the math on this game leaves a lot of customization, a lot of min-maxing, and a lot of super specialized characters. It's really good, or not good, it's really easy in Cyberpunk to be hyper competent at one thing and suck at everything else. Back in the 90s, people loved this. You know, we live in a different time now where most people want to do balance. But let's get into something that we do a lot here, which is ask the question, what is the essence of this game? What is the game behind the game? And Shadowrun has some really good stories from really good authors, but it doesn't have a lot of stories from a lot of authors. And when I say that, I mean it's popular, but it doesn't have the deep bench of fiction that a lot of other people do, because this game is closer to the combat side of role-playing games than it is to the role-playing and story aspect. And I say this because within the role-playing and story aspect, your characters are not going to influence the world that much. These mega corporations have such a hammerlock on the world as it stands that you are not going to be the Republic in Star Wars that may one day take down the Empire. No, that is not what this setting is about. What this setting is about is making a living and trying to suss out some sort of life in a bleak and terrible world that might someday get better, but it probably won't. This is dystopian versus grim dark. And it isn't grim dark, but it can see it from its house. You guys know what I mean? When you got games from like White Wolf and Games Workshop that go, the world is terrible, everyone in it is terrible, and you are a monster. That's what we talk about grimdark. Where Cyberpunk Shadowrun and games along those lines are dystopian in the sense of you live in a terrible world, but it might not be terrible forever. All you have to do is survive and wait for things to change. Okay? But in the meantime, what do? How do you pay that rent? Get that lunch. Pay off those debts that keep coming at the beginning of the month, although you're doing your best to live in your means. You know, that kind of thing. This is about creating small cliques and small family units to survive and get some sort of joy before, just before you get ground down by the system, okay? And in Shadowrun, the system is in conflict with itself and its conflict with the natural order of the universe, okay? They've tried to commodify magic, and in a lot of places they did. But then you get the, God, what was it? The SAIM, the pseudo, or not pseudo, because that starts with a P. But like I said, help me out, chat. The American, the SAIM, which is the, something American Indian movement, and essentially the Native Americans, or the indigenous Americans, took back their land. They did it with magic, all right? Because here's some of the stuff that happens in Shadowrun that I love. Spirits are everywhere, and they manifest all the time. And so the Native American tribes, or the indigenous peoples tribes, who have a long passed down tradition of spirit working, bolster themselves up and actually manage to get a good amount of their land back and not deal with the governments who broke all their treaties. All right, the sovereign, thank you, the sovereign American Indian. And they're doing their things. But you go through a city and you got robbers, you got gangs, but then you also got bug spirits, okay? And these things manifest as monsters, okay? Monsters are running around the street, so you get the random encounters where, you know, a cockroach spirit may manifest into a 7-foot monster that can bite through and chew through anything, hunting down you and your people. And these are things that can happen while you're on a Shadowrun. In fact, these things do happen while you're on a Shadowrun. And it really helps to have a magician on your team on that, because these things aren't exactly vulnerable to bullets or stun guns or, you know, sound wave disruptors, things like that. But all in all, the setting in and of itself is pretty good. But because the mega corporations have such a hammerlock on society as a whole until it wins or loses essentially the war with the natural order, there's not going to be room for a whole lot of stories without changing the narrative to push an ending to this world. But again, the setting in and of itself is amazing, okay? And this is a game I would honestly give a 7 out of 10, okay? And I promise you, I don't have a 10 as far as games that I recommend. But yeah, I would give this game a 7 out of 10 for playing if you and your group want to get together and do something really, really cool. You get what I mean? If you need a break from standard Dungeons and Dragons, or you need a break from Fallout or something, Shadowrun is great. There are wasteland environments and things like that, but not many. Okay. But we're talking, if you love running heist stories and if you want to do a little heisting in your Dungeons and Dragons, then Shadowrun is definitely a big thing. Now, if you guys are wondering, how would we play it? How would we play it? How can I do this? You know, yeah, Mall Ninja King's monofilament katanas do come up short against most spirits, you know. Last thing you want is your 440 steel $60 mall katana going against a rat spirit if you're running through the streets of Seattle, okay? And let's not even talk about badgers and wolverines. But there are ways to drop this stuff into a gaming system that you already know. You guys hear me talk at great length about how much I love Esper Genesis, which is sci-fi 5th edition. And this has a lot of elements of cyberpunk in it, although it's interstellar, but it's easy to run. It's really easy to take a game like Esper Genesis and create a planet that you are Shadowrunners and you're doing the Shadowrun thing. So it could be, these ideas are really great and they can be incorporated into stuff. However, for you purists out there, we're going to get into the system later on this week, probably Thursday. Okay, once I'm really reacquainted with the D6 system, and I do a little more studying in the 6th edition because I haven't actually played the newer Shadowrun stuff. Every time I run Shadowrun or play Shadowrun, it's 3rd edition. So, you know, I'm still doing a lot of research on that, but I wanted to give you guys this because, honestly, hey, what's wrong with Shadowrun? Nothing's wrong with Shadowrun, except for maybe the dice system. And since I play a game that's very much like Warhammer 40k, I've got the D6s laying around, so that's kind of nice. Because this is the game of 1,000 D6s. But, and I will say, this is a game that could be really well incorporated into the Savage World system. And we'll get into Savage World one of these days. I don't know when. If you want to force me to do it, join Patreon. Like a lot of other people have. Because when they tell me to do a show, I got to do a show because they're paying for all of it, and that's how it goes. But yeah, so honestly, Shadowrun is the game for people a lot like myself who like science fiction and who love, and I mean fantasy tropes, but not fantasy setting. I've talked about this months and months ago, but you guys might not be able to get it because the signal is so messed up. Thank you, Spectrum. But I'm a black dude and I grew up in the 80s. So that was a time where fantasy was not something that people that looked like me were included in. There was a hammerlock on fantasy that was, this is medieval England, or the Dark Ages England, or the Dark Age of Scandinavia, and there weren't black people there. Of course there were, but that's not what people believed, and that's not what schools taught. So as much as I loved dwarves and wizards and magicians and all that stuff, it was very hard for me to find gaming groups that would game with me as a black guy without that sense of what's the term? Without that sense of discomfort, because the only thing they knew about medieval history was there were peasants and black people weren't there. And when they think about that period of time and black people, they go straight to the American South, and y'all know what it all looks like. But I love the tropes. I love wizards and dwarves and ogres and all that stuff. But there was always a place for us in sci-fi, because we're here now, and sci-fi was about the future. So we're here, we're not going anywhere. Boom. So Shadowrun spoke to me hard. It was like, look at all these fantasy tropes that you have, but it's in the future with flying cars and guns, and you can throw a fireball at somebody that pulls a 45 out on you. And by the way, there's cybernetic enhancements too, so yeah, you know. And we were all the way there. Otherness, thank you. So yeah, there was always that aspect, and I loved it. A lot of my friends do like things like cyberpunk and wasteland stuff, and I'm like, I'm not really into cyberpunk and Fallout and stuff like that, because I want to imagine a future that I'm in versus a future where I'm the only one in it. You know what I mean? So Shadowrun in and of itself was very, very inclusive all the way across the board, just all the way across the board. Doesn't matter race, religion, creed, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, budget, whatever. All right. This was straight up transhuman. Like straight up transhuman. You got the fantasy races, but you know, you had elves that kind of got cybernetic implants sometimes because they were separated away from the rest of their elven tribe. So there was a lot of stuff going on, you know. You got orcs, you know, you got orcs as part of society working construction jobs for major corporations. So I'm like, yeah, we can get into this, you know, we can get into this. It's sort of a reflection of what if fantasy were around in a future that I can imagine. Now, as time has progressed, it's what if fantasy tropes were around in what it looks like the future is going to be in the next 5 years, but it's still all there. You see what I mean? So again, this is Shadowrun. There are lots of places you can go if you want to do some research, though. If you want to do some resources, I have to say, the fandom, the Shadowrun fandom wiki is great for a lot of this stuff. I mean, they've got over 5,000 pages, and it's kept up by the super awesome fan base. All right. Now there have been a lot of video games, believe it or not. Excuse me. The first Shadowrun video game I ever saw was on the Super Nintendo, because I'm way back in those times. But a new run is coming out relatively soon. I believe it's like another upgrade to Shadowrun Returns. And again, this wiki is pretty cool. It's got the stuff that you need on it. Let's see here. Yeah, in Shadowrun, boom. The settings history is pretty big. Yeah, there we go. You know. Oh no, not that. Hang on, give me the... One of the things about this setting that I thought was really cool is that, well, this came out pre-grunge, right? And when I say pre-grunge, it came out in 1989, so they set it in Seattle, Washington. All right, Seattle was an out-of-the-way city that not a lot of people knew about, and it was, as it still is, on the border between the United States and Canada. So it was a great place to set a futuristic setting. And then grunge came out, and everybody, you know, with Nirvana and all those guys, and everybody like really got to know that. Yeah, the Genesis version was really cool too. And we will get into that. Tomorrow we are going to go through the Chummers app and try and create a character. Because let's face it, that's really the first place we start with any role-playing game. But yeah, this has been really fun. Now, when I said, hey, y'all want me to cover this, join the Patreon. If you guys look down, the toxic spirits. If you guys look down in the description or even there, you'll see a little button or a link to the Patreon. And that's what keeps us afloat and helps out with our community outreach stuff, guys. And like our dude Daryl is out there and he's doing the thing. And of course, our other patrons like Laura Holton, Shaylee Watson, Jennifer Kroll, Noel Olheiler, Christopher Chalmers, and Joseph Hines, who I'm going to be talking about as far as that Joseph Hines, one of our biggest deckers out there, and he is my consultant when it comes to the Savage World system. Yeah, those guys really keep us going, so they get a shout out at every show. Also, we got merch, guys. Y'all want to buy T-shirts and things like that. Um, well, you guys can totally head over to the TeePublic. That's tpublic.com. Look for BidP. That's BID_P. And you guys can check out our notebooks, our wall art, our mugs. I love the mugs. All right. Thinking about getting a little pillow of Little Saul because he's literally like sitting up there going, "I want to hug you." So that is one of the very cool things that we do. And why do I keep bringing this stuff up? Because, well, Back in the Deck gets chewed up by the algorithm, y'all. So our mugs, our T-shirts, that's the way that we keep stuff going. Our Patreon is the biggest way to keep us going. And I'm still rewriting the Patreon and all that stuff. But our lowest tier is $1 to $5. And our highest tier is 100. It's a thing. But that's the way that we keep this going. We don't do commercials. I'm sure you guys have noticed. We don't have sponsorships because, well, honestly, I know you guys don't. I know that you guys don't like what's the term? You guys don't like commercials. We're on the internet. I spend most of my time on the internet when it comes to watching entertainment because I'm tired of commercials that are louder than everything else, telling me what the side effects of a medication that I'm not on will be. And but those people got to pay their bills. We got to pay our bills. So that's kind of the HBO. We also have a donate button down there, and we really appreciate that as well. So that is pretty much our time though. But this has been fun. Talk to your people, bring them down to the show, bring them down, have them watch the show. I gotta give a major shout out to Xanth and Daryl. You guys are like up there holding it down like Clever Little Vixen does, like Gravity. And thanks to Zero Super, Ox2, 420F1, cool. Thank you and welcome to the site. Alexis the Nexus, welcome. Bardic DW, thanks for being here, bro. Casino, thanks. Is Nickable, Sofacking Super, or the Sofa King, Super, thank you for being here. Vixabel, Xanth, thank you guys for showing up today. This has really been cool. Like I said, we're gonna do some other stuff with Shadowrun because this is Shadowrun week. All right, so we are talking about the game of 1,000 D6s. I've been trying to work with the Chummer app to make a couple of characters to see what we can do. And again, the people that like this stuff, the people that love Shadowrun love it for a reason because it is a good game. But like a lot of games, it becomes good after you know what you're doing. It may sound daunting to a lot of newer gamers to have all the record keeping, but the easiest way to practice, and we'll get into this, is to keep a hold of your resources in D&D 5th edition, right? And when I say your resources in D&D 5th, I mean your actual resources. How many torches you got left? How much money you got? All of that jazz. So yeah, I wanted to let you guys know that we're going to be on that, so join the game. But thank you guys, and I'm still talking because I'm expecting the music cue to be coming up pretty soon. Yeah, there it is. So if you guys want to know how to get a hold of us and all of that jazz, it's pretty easy. All you gotta do is pull up, and I mean this, pull up your email and type in backinthedeck@gmail.com. It's BACKINTHEDECK@gmail.com. You can also reach out to us on the social media that everybody has, but everyone thinks sucks, which is Twitter and Instagram, also at Back in the Deck. And, we have a TikTok page. I'm trying to put out content for that. I got a lot of balls in the air, guys. And there's also, if you guys still go to the places where memes go to die, I call it a wretched hive of scum and villainy. Some of y'all call it Facebook. Join the group Deckers on the book. But with that, I gotta say thank you guys for joining us. We are Team Dice House. Feel free to look them up. They're one of our friendly stores. If you are in the Orange County area of Southern California, it's a great store with a lot of really good people. So thank you guys for being here. Check them out and all that stuff. And again, if anybody tells you that you guys can't like what you like because of circumstances of your birth, you can just tell them to stop trying to pull cards on you and put them cards back in the deck. I'm Silver Gray, the Cinematic Sorcerer. Then thank you guys for joining me, and we will see you next time on the Dark Side of